number of people who wanted to come and couldn't come. So we are going to be recording this gathering, both so that we can share it with other folks who were not able to come, and also so that we can check our work later on and see how we can do this better in the future, and see if this is something we should do again. So far, I'm pretty excited. Look at all these folks. We've got 31 people in the room right now, from the other side of the yurt all the way to Nashville. Wonderful. We've got Oklahoma, Idaho. Our board members are scattered all over right now. So sweet. So if you missed this, if you just joined, my recommendation is to set your view to gallery view so that you can see all of the sweet faces in this virtual room. And also to open up the chat so that you can see people's little introductions. And the invitation is to introduce yourself in the chat with how you're connected to Ekone and where home is other than Ekone. And people just keep on rolling in. How sweet. And we'll get started in a little bit here. We've got several hosts today. Me and several staff members. Several
Stella
members.
And Ruby. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to mute you. Everybody's going to be on automatic mute unless you manually unmute yourself. Just because there's a lot of us, and it would become a lot of background noise, a lot of birds chirping in the background in my space here. Yay! Wonderful. Gathering, we really just wanted to see your beautiful faces and connect a little bit and give you a little bit of an update on what's been happening at Ekone. Of course, it's been a really big year. We haven't gotten to see as many of you as often as we would have liked. And we know that people are thinking about Ekone and kind of wondering, I mean, if you're here, I assume that you're wondering how it's been going out at the ranch during this big year. And so we wanted to give you a few updates, a few stories from this year, a little check-in, and also give you an opportunity to ask any questions. If you want to know how your favorite horse is doing, or you want to know how Ekone is weathering this storm in any manner of ways, we would love to hear your questions. And we're gonna, so how this will work is that we'll go around through the Ekone staff, and Judy Todd will represent the board of directors. And we're all just gonna tell you just a little story from our little corner of the organization and give you a very quick update. If we gave a long update, we would be here all night, but we're gonna give a really quick update about our corner of the organization. And then we'll turn it over for questions, and we'll just answer as many of your questions as we can. So, and how you'll ask a question is that in the chat, you can either pose your question, or you can just write in the chat that you have a question. And then after the staff and Judy are done sharing our pieces, then we'll call on you and we'll ask you to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question so that we can hear a few of your voices as well. And then we'll see who the best person to answer your question is, if we can. And then we'll ask the next question or go on to the next person. So that's our plan for this very casual organizational hello and check-in and update with you. We've got 35 people in the room now. And it's fun. I'm just flipping back and forth these two pages, and hi everybody. Glad to see you. So let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and call on a few of the staff. We've got a few stories ready to share, and we're gonna start with our program director, Caitlin, who has done a major pivot this year and has a few stories from the most unusual season of Ekone camps. So Caitlin, why don't you go ahead? Can you unmute yourself? Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Shoni. Hi, everybody. Look at all your waving faces. This is fun. It's really good to see you all, those of you that we saw over the summer and those of you that we didn't. And if we didn't see you, I hope that we will see you very soon. I was thinking about this summer and how different it was, but also how the same it was, and was thinking about one thing that we did that I was super grateful for, which was that we still brought in maybe even more than usual massive amounts of firewood this summer. So we went out in the trucks, we got firewood every single week of the summer, many times a week, with families and some teen volunteers and the staff when we didn't have anybody else around. And I did some rough estimations earlier because I wasn't tracking it all summer. And I think that we brought in about 30 truckloads of firewood, which I think is equivalent to something around 10 cords of wood, if anybody is familiar with firewood measurements. So that is pretty incredible. We had a really epic year of forestry last year, and so bringing in all that wood was quite a feat. And it was really gratifying to see it come out of the forest and into the woodshed and get stacked really beautifully. We had some very dedicated wood stackers that just really did it perfectly. So anybody that was involved in that that's on this call, thank you so much. Anybody that might benefit from that later this winter, please appreciate those people. It's going to keep all of us nice and toasty all winter long. And I was also thinking about just my little update from program land and how even though we didn't have summer camp this year, we did get to do something really special and have families come out. And from our youngest family member, who I believe was 3 years old, to our oldest family member, who I think was turning 70, we got to share the ranch with just a really wide array of people over the course of the summer, and that was really, really special. We had about 175 people out to the ranch over the course of the summer, which is more than I thought that it was going to be. So that was also pretty exciting to be able to do that really in a safe way and in a way that people seem to really enjoy and get a lot out of spending time with their families. And we do have a couple of things coming up on the horizon. There is a horse workshop for adults and older teens, October 1st through the 4th, that's going to be connecting with horses from the ground. We have another family retreat / work party, kind of like a DIY family retreat, if your family would like to come out and spend Friday to Sunday at the ranch and help us out with the remaining firewood that there is still a little bit left in the forest, or some garden projects and things like that. That's October 16th to the 18th. And then we're going to host a teen work party towards the end of the month. That one is already full, but if that's something that you're interested in the future, just let me know and we can always make there be another one. And then we're going to have another family retreat weekend, November 6th to the 8th. So those 2 family retreat weekends still have room in them. So if you are itching for some Ekone time during the really special fall season, just let me know, and we'd love to see all of you or any of you that are able to come. I think that's it for me, and I'm happy to answer questions later if anybody has any. Thanks.
Thanks, Caitlin. We'll go next to Jody. Let's look at our other major program area. Jody's our cemetery director and can talk about this angle of our work.
Yeah, thanks, Joni. And thank you to all of the woodshed elves. Every summer I have the experience of coming back to my cabin in the valley and finding the woodshed mysteriously and beautifully stacked. And this year was beautifully stacked. I had a moment of awe. So if you were involved in that, many, many, many blessings upon your head that will help both me and the folks who use the cabin when I'm not there to stay warm. I so appreciate it. It has been an odd year all the way around, but some things have really been like clarifyingly beautiful. And the last two burials that we had out at White Eagle were really good examples of that. The last one was for a fellow who called me a couple of years ago from California, just randomly. He wasn't going to come and pick a spot in person. He just wanted to be buried in the woods. So I picked a place for him. He was in his early 50s, and I didn't figure we'd hear from him again for a long time, but he died unexpectedly, and he had named his at this point, she's 20 years old, his niece, to be his executor. And so her mom joined in to help support her in that. And his sister and her daughter came up from California and had no idea what they were in for, and told me ahead of time that they were nervous, and it was such a good like affirmation of what this place is able to offer to people, even people who've never met it before. And it just so happened that they were looking to come up for the burial during the same day that we were holding an anti-racism retreat with our board members and a bunch of our youth staff. And that day was very, like, that particular date was important to them. So to sort of put the call out, like, can we also have a burial in the midst of all of this? And everybody rallied, and it ended up being such a beautiful gathering. There were 4 or 5 of the youth staff, Ruby and Evelyn and Soraya and Adela, and then some of our board members, Judy and Victoria and Jasenia, and it just, like, everybody was amazing. And the presence involved in doing burial work is not, like, it's a unique skill set. It's intangible and it's kind of hard to explain, but I think whatever it is about Ekone that calls people out here, there's a groundedness and a willingness to get in there and break a sweat. And so the sister and her daughter were, I think, deeply moved and also lightened and held by what we were able to carry out for them. And I took them on a walk to the canyon, and when we came back, the people had arranged this lovely ring of pine cones, and there was still a basket full of sunflowers for them to place on the top of the grave, and it was just lovely. I want to say, by way of update, also that we had Egret, one of the newer horses to Ekone, who's trained as a draft, like a cart horse, and we have hopes that she will be horse-drawn hearse horse, and we've introduced her in a couple of burials in this summer, and so far she seems like totally unfazed and fairly calm. And the last burial we had before the one I just described, she also really was acting as a therapy horse for Africa John's daughter, who was not grounded and having a hard time, and being able to connect with Egret during that very difficult goodbye was really poignant and amazing to watch. So thanks to Jenna, our horse manager, for her diligence and work in that. And yeah, we just keep taking the White Eagle work as it comes, and I continue to be so amazed by how supportive the whole Ekone crew on the ground is. And yeah, I'm basking in some really, really beautiful moments in this year. Thanks.
Thanks, Jody. I got to attend a couple of those burials, which is not I don't always, and it was a really wonderful experience to get to support that important work. And Egret really does love it. It's uncanny. Yeah. Let's go next to Liz. Liz, would you give us an update on operations? Liz is our operations director and the project manager for the Saddle Up campaign as well.
Howdy, everybody. It's really good to see all these faces. Yeah, things have been cruising along in operations world. You know, we originally at the start of the year, we've been planning for a pretty relaxing, chilled out, year on this front after spending a very busy summer building the new bunkhouse. So, even though that didn't all turn out quite the way we were thinking, it was still, still managed to be getting quite a bit done on the facilities land. We spent an amount of time this spring getting the bunkhouse all wrapped up and some really incredible landscaping and beautiful terracing and some sleeping lawns put in, as well as one of my favorite projects that we got to this summer was being able to build a new lumber storage shed. So we've been doing a lot of forestry, as Caitlin was mentioning, in the woods, doing a lot of fuels reduction and thinning the forest and taking out some of the trees that are too crowded, as well as harvesting some of the standing dead that have been killed by pine bark beetles. And as some of you guys probably know, we have a wood miser bandsaw mill here. So Sean, our awesome facilities manager, has been milling up some of those trees that are being thinned out of the forest, so that some of that lumber can be used for the new Yummy Tummy 2 kitchen that we're stoked about, as well as some other projects. So one of the things that he was able to work on this summer was we really need a place to store all of this incredible wood, and so he built a really cool lumber storage shed that's kind of back in the shop area. It's sort of on the way out to the canyon as you're leaving the ranch and passing by the barn. And in true Ekone fashion, I think that the building permit that we got for it was actually more expensive than what we ended up spending on materials, because there was so much reclaimed and recycled and reused materials we were able to use in that. So it feels really nice to have a good home for all of that lumber that's coming out of the mill. And as I mentioned, the forestry has been something we're really starting to ramp up on, and is feeling every year, I think, feels more and more important to be doing this fuels reduction work and doing this work to improve the health of the forests. And so that's something that we're just getting ready to dive back into. It's kind of a fall winter thing, is when it's safe to be in the forest thinning and such. So we're really excited to get back into that, and as well, very excited to continue planning for the new kitchen. As I think many of you have heard, we have started working with an awesome pair of architects from Bainbridge Island out of called Studio Hamlet, and they came out this summer. And we're just very excited about a lot of the deep values alignment with them in terms of sustainable building and sort of the preserving the creative, funky side of Ekone buildings and facilities, even while making sure that everything has foundations and, the critters aren't able to come in quite so much. So, yeah, so that feels really exciting and inspiring. We'll be getting some schematic designs by the end of the month to begin working with. Every day there's kind of more things that we see or think about it in terms of what this incredible building will be and mean to us, and be able to provide for the work of Ekone. And one thing I think that was really special for me about this summer was because of the big switch up, change up, I actually ended up getting to spend a fair amount of time in the kitchen helping to cook with an incredible crew of young, new cooks this summer. And so that was such a fun and fulfilling experience to be able to have that opportunity to, teach some as well as learn some, and participate in this really kind of group effort to, even in these different and changing circumstances, keep incredible meals coming out of the Yummy Tummy, and to be able to do that with a extremely hardworking as well as very good-humored crew of young folks was really a highlight of this summer for me.
Thanks, Liz, and yeah, kudos to that kitchen crew. I think that with that, we should probably pass the baton to my mom, Chris. Mom, you got to unmute yourself.
Did I do it?
You did it. You did it.
So I'm on.
Yep, you're on. Tell us your story and what the summer was like for you.
Okay, well, hearing Lizzie talk about how much fun she had in the kitchen, I just feel so nostalgic and proud, just really proud of, how things are getting carried on, and also how much figuring went into doing all the hosting and taking care of things that needed to happen this summer. Was quite a dance, and I just feel like we came through it shining, really, and with some new skills and new confidence. And so it wasn't all bad. There was lots of silver linings. I'm feeling very nostalgic too, is kind of how I've been feeling about this phone call. I haven't figured out how to get everybody's faces on my screen, but maybe before the end of it, I'll have Shoni help me. But March found me quarantining in Jody's cabin, which was the first place that my family moved to when we first moved to Ekone 20-some years ago. And it was so sweet to be able to land there. And it's just it's a wonderful space with a lot of memories for me. And that kind of launched me into spending a lot of time in the greenhouse, because it was March, and, in the greenhouse was a very cozy place to be. It's where I ended up, taking sponge baths and washing my hair and stuff, but also planting the spring garden in there. And that kind of led to a lot of time this spring and summer in the garden, which was just lovely, and kind of made up for the fact that I couldn't spend so much time in the kitchen. And so it's just amazing how things kind of balance out. Also, instead of having my grandkids come to camp here, I got to go camp with them up in the North Woods of Canada, and that was super special. And when else would I have a chance to do that except when things are so very well covered and handled back here at home? So kind of amazing all the way around. Carenza, I got your hello. Hi, I hope you're still there. And I would just mention an incident from this summer when I was headed to the garden, and coming over the crest of the hill by the new bunkhouse was all the moms and kids, and everybody broke into song serenading me, and I just melted. It was really awesome. So it's been so wonderful to see you know, parents and kids and campers and staff, even from a distance, it's still very meaningful. And, you know, we've got so many great memories, and I just am so confident in this work and in the energy behind it and the future of this work. And I know that y'all that might be coming along, you know, a few years behind me or a bunch of years behind me, I hope for you to have such full and wonderful memories as I get to have right now. So that might be about it for me. Thanks, Shoni.
Oh, so good. Yes, thanks for all the years of good meals. It was you know, a strange kind of accidental semi-retirement that happened this summer, and the grace of this transition has been really a blessing. Let's go to Michelle, our newest staff member, who wears several hats. Michelle's the volunteer and garden and conservation coordinator. She skimmed really important things off of several of the rest of our jobs, and now we don't know how we ever managed without her. So, Michelle, you want to say a few things?
Sure. So if you haven't met me yet, I can't wait to know you. I started here in my new job at the beginning of February. And so I had a couple of precious weeks where I just did my job, and I thought that's what my job was going to be like before that became quickly not my job at all, and nothing was my job, and COVID happened and we didn't know what was happening. So it was very fun, interesting year to begin my journey. My update is about the garden because I was learning about this garden and all of the things, and we had a ton of people out who were helping to pull out the quackgrass. If you're not familiar with quackgrass, please come visit next spring. You will be intimately connected after that. And then a neighbor, Asa, a longtime friend of Ekone Ranch, called up and said, "Hey, I have like 100 cabbages. Do y'all want some?" And we were like, "Oh, like 100 cabbages, maybe. I don't know. We'll see." So he brought over a bunch. We took about 50, I think. They seem so small in the spring, you know, they come in little packs. They're just, each one's about this big. But you know how big they're gonna get, and just like gigantic. So we put about 50 in the ground. Thank the goddess for Chris helping in the garden, like she said. And then they grew and grew and grew and became these big, beautiful cabbages, and they were all ready to harvest at once. And there was a lot of inner turmoil amongst everyone around about what was going to happen to the cabbages. Are we going to let them go to waste? Are we going to store them? What do we do? And then we had a flash of genius with this kitchen crew that everyone has already been so graciously grateful of. They were fabulous, and I dumped a handful of cabbages upon them, maybe once a week, 5 to 8 cabbages a week, and they turned them all into amazing sauerkraut, like really, really good sauerkraut. There was like a beet one and a pear ginger one, and like all these different flavors. And so they all got preserved. We didn't waste one, well, maybe one. We didn't waste almost any cabbages, and they were the fabulous, the most fabulous special treat. I'm still eating some. I have some in my fridge right now, and I'm so grateful. So thank you to them, always and forever. Bless. And anyone interested in volunteering in the future, let me know. There'll be a place for you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so many things did happen this summer. Let's see, I'm gonna go next, and then Judy, I'll turn it over to you, and you can say hello on behalf of the board, and then open it up for questions, okay? We're right on track here. This is fun. So my title is Executive Director. My roles include fundraising and business administration and communications and supporting our totally amazing staff. So those are the biggest things that I do. The story that I want to tell is around the horse program, because Jenna was not able to join us tonight. She was on a trip. She made a detour to pick up a saddle. She is out of range. She says hello. She wishes she could be here. And my story is kind of about Jenna. And this summer, when we had to make a pivot, another pivot, it was the year of the pivot, right? Everybody's been pivoting so much that our heads spin. And one of the pivots that we made this summer was around kind of scaling back and changing our programming, because COVID case counts were going up in the state of Washington, and we did a big assessment around whether the things that we were doing continued to make sense and whether we needed to change anything. So during that assessment, we decided to increase the distance that we were having with the guests that were coming to Ekone and reduce the things that were putting people in close contact with each other. Even with masks on, we decided to just peel back a little bit. And that resulted in a decision of not riding horses anymore. Because in order to teach somebody to ride horses, you have to get really close to them. There's a lot of like up close instruction that happens when we're coaching people in riding. So we decided to not ride anymore. And I kind of thought this was going to be a disaster, because people just really love to ride horses. You know, the thing about horses is that we really want to ride them. We want to go out on the trail. We really want to go fast. And I wasn't sure how this was going to be received. But Jenna was like, it's fine. We'll do horse walks. We'll give horses massages. It's going to be great. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I could go on horse walks and give horse massages all day long and probably have fun time with that. But I'm not sure about our guests and kids and folks and whether this is going to be fun for them. And then I came down to dinner, like I think I was gone the first weekend that this was happening. And then the second weekend that it was happening, I came down to dinner, and the people were like, oh my goodness, the connection that I had with this horse. I sat out in the pasture, and then it came over and it breathed in my face, and I gave it a massage, and I learned about the bladder meridian, and it was like the best horse experience of my life. And I was like, wow, that's totally amazing that people are having their most transformative horse experiences here this summer because we aren't able to ride, because we're making really safe decisions and adapting things in 1,000 different ways to be able to continue sharing this place and the experiences of Ekone with people. It's opening up opportunities and experiences and ways of engaging with ourselves and with each other and with the land that we never would have discovered otherwise. Like, we got to share the land with these multi-generational families in ways that we never would have done without COVID. We got to send people with folding chairs into the corral to sit around with horses. And it was a really powerful, big experience. Mom's semi-retirement opened the way for all of these young volunteers to rise to a different level of leadership in the kitchen than they would have otherwise. Like, there's beautiful things coming from this time. We didn't know it going in. There's a lot of challenges in this time too, but there's a lot of real sweet things coming from it. And the glow in those people's eyes when they were talking about their horse times. Kids, grown-ups, very little kids, older adults, everything in between was really beautiful. And organizationally, from some of the places, the hats that I wear and the things that I hold, you know, there's been a lot of a lot of challenges to this year, but we are thus far making it through. Financially, it's been a very challenging year. Our earned income has definitely been significantly down from where it normally is. We were able to get the government Paycheck Protection Program loan grant, so that was very helpful. And we also got an economic injury disaster loan from the SBA, and so that's very helpful. So those things are really helping us stay afloat this year, and we are okay at this point. The thing that's really in question and is challenged is we're still in the middle, we're halfway through a major capital campaign that the future of Ekone is really depending on. So that's the big challenge ahead of us, is to keep the capital campaign on track, even while we're going through such big, important, transformative times that are requiring so much attention and energy and resources from all of us. We really are doubling down with our commitment to the work of this place and the important impact that Ekone has on so many lives, and really committed to seeing this capital campaign through, because we know that that's what it's going to take to keep it all going strong. I can see a path. It's a narrow path. There might be alligators on the sides of the path, but I can see the way that we will be breaking ground on the new Yummy Tummy next spring. We'll be in construction all next year. I can see a reality in which that's a good time for us to be under construction, and that then the kitchen will be open for the summer of 2022, right when our kids and our families and our communities are so ready to really lean into healing and turn towards the next reality that is on the other side of this pandemic, that is our responsibility to be turning towards. So that's the path. That's the path that we're on, and we're walking it, and we're so glad and grateful to have you on it with us. So with that, I'll turn it over to our board president, Judy Todd, to share a few words on behalf of the board, and then we'll be opening it up for some questions. So
Thanks, Joni. Thanks a lot. Well, I'm so happy that there are so many of the board members on the call tonight, because I see Victoria and Ruby and Stella, and I'm not seeing everybody all at the same time, but I know Morgan's calling in from across the country. And then we have these three new fabulous people. Let's see, Val, I saw you, there you are. Valerie is with us. And we're glad that she's joined our board of directors. It's really perfect. Jacinia, you were there a minute ago, and then of course things pop around on these little guys. And then also, oh, there you are, and Tracy. There's Tracy and Suzanne. So we are growing, which is crazy. You would think that everything, I mean, there's a way that you could feel like things are shrinking, but actually this is a great time to sort of rally the people. And that feels a lot like what's happening, which makes our center so much stronger. So I've been around Ekone for a while. I had the very good fortune to go out 3 times this year. I got to sleep in Michelle's bus because the air was so bad. I needed to get out of my tent. And so Michelle, thanks. That's a crazy bus. Everybody should get a turn in it. I got to be at the burial. I got to do more stuff this year than sometimes I've gotten to do when I'm out there as a volunteer during camp. It was just didn't make any sense to me. I got to watch my granddaughter Evelyn, who's on the call, in the kitchen. Like, I think she put in more kitchen hours at Ekone this summer than she's put in the rest of her life. So it was really fun. And just so many people to share with. I am amazed at how many of your faces I actually know on this call. Many of you I've spoken to on the phone, because it's one of the joys of being on the board. You get to call and thank people. What could be better? That's probably the most important job we have, is to get to connect with people that support us, that attend camps, that help pay for camps, that come out and check out the, the White Eagle Preserve, people who come to volunteer and come to work on the weekends. And you just get to know these fabulous people. Obviously 36 of them plus, because some of you are in little couple groups there. And sometimes you just get to know them by voice or by a passing moment. And so what I love about this call tonight, Shoni, and why I think it's so great to actually have the unbarbed wire ball online, is that we get to see people and hear from them and about them in ways that we can't really do in 1 year. It's taken me years and years to meet so many people from the ranch and to be so clear about kind of who's who. I even knew Barbara Bell was in Nashville. And I don't even know if I've ever met Barbara Bell, but you just learn stuff, So I'm really happy to be a part of this and to really have new board members to join, new ways of playing together. And then just before we got on the call, I had to look up and see what somebody who was really engaged in a different kind of leadership might say about how to be a good board. And I loved this. This was a woman who I looked up online. Her name is Pearl Zhu, Z-H-U. And she said there are three things that you've got to have if you really want to excel as a board of directors. So if this lights your fire, you should talk to me about board service. One of them is accumulate rational wisdom. Another one is sharpen your strategic wisdom. But my favorite is embrace unconventional wisdom. And I think that's what we've been called to do this year. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of it. So with that, let's go for some questions. So if you have a question, type it into the chat. And then I think between Shoni and Caitlin and I will call on you and take as many questions and get as many conversations going as we can in the remaining time.
You can also I only have 2 screens of you. So if you have a question, you can probably just raise your hand and wiggle it around.
Your physical hand, not necessarily.
You can unmute yourself and then we can go from there. The other thing that I'm going to do, if you don't start waving your hands in the air, is that I'm just going to call on you. And I'm going to ask you if you have a question. If you don't have a question, then I'm going to ask you if you've learned anything at Ekone. Ekone kids, I'm looking at you. Get ready. Jack Frank has a question. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you guys, and you can ask it. Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
All right, it's a Deborah question, actually.
Oh, good. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, it's nice to see you and everybody. I was really struck by your story, Shoni, about working with intergenerational families through family camp and the experience that they had at Ekone with each other, with you and the staff. And I'm just wondering, is that something you're thinking about going forward that you would want to continue to do in some way, maybe even a more formal way, intergenerational type stuff?
Yeah, I'm gonna tap Caitlin to answer that one.
Hi again. Yeah, it was kind of an unexpected. I didn't go into it thinking we're doing intergenerational camps, like that wasn't on the brain. It was like, how can we do this because of COVID? So, but that concept is something that we've been talking about for a long time. Like, how do we bring different age groups together? And it's something we've even talked about on our board, possibly having like an elders council and a youth council and having them work together on visioning for the organization. And so this summer just kind of got me thinking, like, how could we expand that? And I don't have any concrete ideas yet. I do think continuing to do some kind of family camps, even post-COVID, would be great. And I really loved seeing it happen just kind of naturally on its own. And I would love if anybody has resources for programs like that to hear about them and learn about them and do something like that going forward. I think it'd be great. Thanks for asking.
And Shoni, Gail had a question about numbers. How many people usually come through based on what you said about how many guests were on the land this year?
I can answer that one too if you want. Yeah, so usually we would have about 200 campers a summer. And so that's usually 9 weeks, 8 or 9 weeks of summer camp, about 200 campers. Plus then we do our, off-season programming, so like school field trips, retreats, and things like that. So having 175 people over the course of more like 11 weeks over the course of the summer was not that far off from our usual summer numbers. It was just configured very differently. But we didn't have nearly as many people like in the spring and in the fall as we would usually have. Usually we'll have like big retreat groups and things like that. So over the course of the summer, it wasn't actually that different in the end.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let's see. I'm gonna tap, let's see. I'm gonna tap Ruby. Ruby, will you either ask a question or tell us something that you've learned from Ekone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Something. I think something that I have learned, I mean, I've learned so many life skills at Ekone, but really independence and kind of responsibility, because for about a month, my sort of job was valley keeper. And I would get a list of Michelle, a list from Michelle every week of things that needed to get done. And then she would basically just like leave me to sort them into categories and just get them all done. And it was really cool to be able to make my own schedule and just like be responsible for myself in that way. And I definitely learned a lot of independence.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot, Ruby. Morgan, you had a question. You want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, so, the fires have been on everyone's minds very recently for good reasons. Yeah. And I know that we think about fire preparedness a lot and doing a lot of land maintenance to try to reduce the risk of fire. But with the Yummy Tummy 2 planning that's underway, has that shifted any of the plans or shifted priorities in such a way?
Yeah, I can speak to that, and then Liz, you can jump in too. Liz and I have been having some really fraught and focused conversations around fire preparedness and what our responsibility is for learning to live with fire in this country. Part of the devastation of these recent fires is that there's now so many people that live in the wildland interface zone, where people are living in dry land, in forests, increasing the number of sparks that are available. I'm pretty sure that actually none of the recent devastating fires were caused by lightning. These are fires that are started by people, by accident, by, there's a lot of causes for sparks out there. It's our responsibility to learn to live with this element. This land is intended to burn, and it's only a matter of time before a fire will come through Ekone Ranch. We are doing everything that we can to minimize the catastrophic impact of that fire when it does come through this land through the kind of forestry that we're practicing, which kind of mimics the way that a fire would leave this land by thinning the smaller trees, by eating a lot of the, like reducing the understory, reducing the amount of highly flammable material so that if there was a fire to come through, it would not be as hot, as catastrophic for the forest or for the animals or for our buildings that are in these places. So we've done a lot of really sensitive, really careful, labor intensive, and we hope very effective forestry. We also need to be building differently, like across the board throughout this region. We need to be building in such a way that is fire resistant, structures that aren't going to burn down as easily, that aren't as vulnerable to fire. So the bunkhouse was built in a super fire resistant way. It has pretty much entirely non-flammable exterior materials. It has a roof system that won't allow sparks to get sucked up inside the building. And the new kitchen will be doing that and even more. In the incredibly smoky conditions that we've had over the past week, it's making us think about other things that we can do to live with smoky summers, which are likely not going to be a rarity in our future. So Liz, do you want to jump in and say a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you covered most of it. Just that we're sort of doubling down on it. It's definitely reaffirming a lot of the decisions we did make about the bunkhouse, and that we had already been thinking of for the new Yummy Tummy as far as fire resiliency, as well as, and I think another thing we're looking at as well is related to fires is the other effects of climate change, and hotter summers and things like that, and how we can really build buildings that have creative ways of addressing some of those issues too. So a lot of, like in the bunkhouse, a lot of the incredible insulation and connection to earth that really helps mitigate temperature fluctuations. Things like the clay straw and the plaster that we used in the bunkhouse, that we're considering using in the Yummy Tummy too as well. Those actually help to filter air and improve air quality. And then of course we're looking at now really getting creative with that kind of increased indoor air quality. There are always little things that kind of remind us, because we do love to be outside so much, and so we're definitely really good at designing buildings with that sense of like making the outside be inside. And so definitely with the new Yummy Tummy, we're looking at doing that while still creating a place that a space that can really nurture the programs that we're going to be having even in really adverse conditions.
Thanks, Liz. I can stay on this call until 7 o'clock. It's 6:29 right now, and we told you it would be an hour, and I'm expecting that maybe some of you are going to have to tap out, and that's totally fine. But before you go, I just want to make sure that you know about the unbarbed wire ball that's happening Thursday through Sunday. This is our attempt to bottle up a little bit of the deliciousness of the barbed wire ball and of Ekone and shoot it out into the world towards you to give you some nourishment and goodness from Ekone, even though we can't invite 300 of our friends to Ekone this month, which we're very sad that we can't do that. But we're also really kind of tickled and excited about some of our plans. Some of the videos that we have concocted are amazing and delicious and hilarious. We're going to be sending them out every day on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Also, the auction is a total knockout. The folks that have donated items, some of the Ekone items are just really, really delightful. And we've also had a really dedicated Ekone donor double down and put up a matching pledge for any donations that come in through the barbed wire ball will be matched up to $10,000. for the barbed wire ball. So, and all of the money that is raised at the unbarbed wire ball next weekend will go towards the building of the new kitchen. And that will go a long ways towards helping us to leverage a really significant, potentially $250,000 grant from the Murdoch Charitable Trust. So this is a really like a super impactful time to support the ranch and to support the new Yummy Tummy. So I just wanted to say all of that. We've got about 75 people registered for the auction so far. I'm really excited about that. And if you haven't registered so far, go ahead and hop on over to ekone.org, follow the breadcrumb trail, and be registered for the auction. And also know that your support really means the world to us. Okay. A few more questions. Karenza's got a question. Karenza, you want to unmute?
Sure, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I typed it pretty thoroughly, but what I was asking was, there feels like the way that Ekone leans into such intentional ways of being on the land, whether it's building or fire resilience or paying attention to the proactive ways that you're supporting that land. I think that when we think about climate resilience and what might come down the line in the future, or what the possibility is for other organizations and areas who are doing similar work to come together and maybe learn about this, could be really a positive thing for you all. Yeah, could be a moneymaker at some point. And I just feel like hearing y'all think about the way you want to build, and having experienced the bunkhouse this summer, and really noting that how solidly built that structure is, but how safe it is and how very Ekonified it is too, which is really special. And so I just wonder if you have thought about those things. Of course, like this online Zoom world is not something that we want to be the standard go-to way of connecting with people. And that's how we also get the word out to people who aren't in our area, who want to know about these kind of programs.
Yeah.
So kind of a two-step question. Have you thought about that? And also, how can you put those things on in ways that are more virtual, that don't cut into, the time when you're offering services in person, but can kind of complement that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we're thinking about it more and more all the time. I tell you, especially with the wildfire resilience, I feel like we have an opportunity to be a model for a way of building and living in fire zone in a way that it may help others learn how to live in fire zone. And it feels like it's our responsibility to be as good of a model for that as we can. So fire resilience is not something we're going to cut corners on with the new kitchen. There's going to be some decisions to make around what we can afford and what we would like, and what's on the wish list and what's optional. But fire resilience really should not be considered an optional thing, given where we live and the responsibility that we have to the future of the organization, and to be a model for all of the people who are coming here. The forestry work that we've done over the years too has already been a real model for our neighborhood. Our DNR forester came out and hosted a workshop at Ekone using Ekone's forestry methods as a model for neighboring landowners, as a way to reduce the wildfire risk in this area. So, and the way that we're doing it is really unique. It's really different than a lot of other landowners are doing this kind of forestry. We're doing it in a much more, raise your hand if you've been to a forestry work party. They are labor intensive. They're very, it's really a lot of work. But by doing it that way, we're able to really be light on the land and do it in the best possible way for the best outcome for the forest and the most effective fuels reduction and fire resilience forestry as well. So I do think that there's going to be a lot more potential for that kind of modeling in the future, and it's definitely something that we're leaning into and looking forward to leaning into more when we have more organizational capacity, like when the capital campaign's over. Yeah.
And definitely, as well, I think, now is a time too to really be looking for other organizations to partner with or to work with who are also doing some of this work or some of this education. And so, yeah, any folks that y'all know about who's doing similar things as far as that climate resilience, we're definitely wanting to build a lot of those connections. So that's a great question, Karenza.
Hey guys, Mackenzie had a question, and it might have gotten a little lost in the list there. Are there non-financial ways to support Ekone? Where are you, Mackenzie?
Oh, there she is.
I think she's eating dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to support Ekone, and on our website, in the left-hand bar, there's a link that says, I think it says all the ways to help or how to help Ekone. And financial contributions, of course, are the thing that we talk about all the time because we're fundraising. We're spending about $2 million on Ekone's facilities over this 5-year period. And so that's the thing that we talk about a lot. But there's lots of other ways to help Ekone. And Mackenzie actually is a creative helper herself. She contributed an auction item, being a good example for all Ekone kids everywhere, finding the ways to contribute. Talking about Ekone to your school and your friends and your family and your classmates, and talking about Ekone around in the world, that's a really important way. Sending us notes and telling us that we should keep it up and that you value the work that we're doing here and that you want to be a part of it is really important. And hearing from you the impact that Ekone has had on your life, the things that you've learned, the experiences that you've had that have made an impact on you and your life, that is also a really important way to support the ranch, because knowing and sharing about the impact and the meaning and the purpose of this work is a really big part of growing support for it. So that's a really important way too.
And that was just something that I was wondering, because I know like the general ways how to support Ekone, and I know that financial donations are also a really big thing. But right now, like at least for me, if I'm donating something for the auction, that would be easier, or coming and volunteering or something. And I already talked to my friends so much about Ekone. Like, you can't go at least a month without me saying something, just because it's that impactful.
Yeah.
And also another thing for how you guys are so fire conscious and how you guys make your buildings. I think that it's a really amazing way, and you're taking things from the earth, but not without giving thanks to the earth, and taking it with an intention and not taking too much and over consuming from the resources that you have surrounding you, to also kind of help build, the fire resistance, which I think is something that's forgotten so much. And I think a lot of people nowadays just take and take and take from the earth and don't really give anything back or really put much thought into it. And so how you guys put so much thought into it, and you guys plan and make sure that you can do that within being like conscious about it, is I think really amazing and one of a kind for you guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that, Mackenzie. It's really important and meaningful to have your voice in that mix. Yeah. Let's see, have I missed questions? Oh, Valerie, you had a question.
I did, and it was a perfect segue.
About work parties.
Mackenzie was just asking her question, which is, I'm curious, over the next year or the next few seasons, how you foresee work parties or volunteerism in terms of in-person volunteerism to help with the things that need to happen over the course of the fall, winter, spring, what that's shaping up to look like.
Awesome. Maybe I'll let Michelle jump in here and talk about the forestry internship and other ways of pitching in.
Yeah, so I think that like the previous model of the work party is tricky to do, especially over the winter when we like would then like huddle in the lodge for tea. One of the things that we have talked about for the work party idea is, like Caitlin mentioned earlier, the family weekends that are going to be more scheduled like programs, but they will look a little more maybe like a work party, so that people, families, and like folks can come with other people that they're already bubbled with. So that's kind of our current idea for the work, for like winter work parties, but we do still have other volunteer opportunities that are a little bit longer term. So the next one being the forestry internship, which is still just a baby idea, even though it's coming right up. We're gonna hash it all out any minute. We actually have a meeting tomorrow to talk more about it. But that will be like a longer term. You would come, you would stay, you'd be able to quarantine first, and then sort of join into the internship with a couple of other people who would then stay and work. And that can look different, or that could, a similar thing can happen like that in the spring, like maybe when we have the garden internship pop up again, or summer volunteer opportunities where we are bringing people to stay. They quarantine, they join a very small household of people. You can ask our kitchen crew how that worked out for them this summer. They did a great job of modeling that for the first time this year. And those are kind of the ideas, but open to suggestions and fabulous ideas as well.
Yeah. We're really looking for all the ways that we can figure to invite people out and to keep rallying the support that we need to take care of this big place, and to continue making the ranch as available for people as we can, because it's just so clear how important space and community and connection to land and the ability to make a contribution to a place like Ekone is right now. It feels like those things have always been baked into Ekone's value and importance, and right now it feels extra, there's extra focus on the importance of those things. So we welcome your input and ideas about that too. Let's see, I think that we might be about wrapping up, unless there are other questions that I missed or that are percolating up. Should we do this again sometime? Wonderful. Okay. It's been really wonderful to see your faces and hear some of your voices. And maybe we'll do this often enough in the future that we can have a little smaller group and engage in a little bit more conversation too, and be able to hear more of your voices. We really didn't know whether there was going to be 3 people or 100 people on this one, and I'm really glad. I think at one point we were at 36, and that seemed like a really sweet number, but also like too many to really like hear all of your voices and have more of a conversation. So maybe we'll experiment with the numbers and the forum a little bit and see what we can do to keep this sense of community and connection going with you all through these times. Yeah. Okay. How do we end? We miss you.